Hey, everybody. Welcome to a surprising and unplanned Sales Top to Bottom. I'm your host, Keenan, and I welcome Becc. Becc, what are your thoughts on sales leadership in the last 2 quarters?
You can't pick a work topic. The question has to be it's got to be short and quippy. You told me for me to be more entertaining that I had to be short and quippy in the intro.
I didn't ask you to write a dissertation. I just simply asked you, what are your thoughts?
Hey, can you unpack the themes in Barnaby Rudge by Charles Dickens and how it cross sections? Come on.
You could have answered the question already by now, Becc.
Better one. Give me a better one.
No, just quickly, what are your thoughts on sales leadership in the last 2 quarters?
I don't have many fired up ones. I mean, I think it stayed pretty static to what it was. That's my polite PC answer. Define what is. Why? Why do you ask? It's a good question. Why do you ask?
Just curious.
I feel like there's so much behind this. I feel like I just walked into a bomb. The interesting thing with Keenan's questions is I always know that I've gotten them wrong. I'm like, what?
There's no wrong or right, the lovely Becc Holland. There is no wrong or right. Oh, by the way, Mr. Ralph Barcy says hello.
Oh, tell Ralph I say hi. Wait, is he on the thing now? Is he in the comments?
I was talking to him earlier today.
You know, Ralph sends me a Christmas card, and I'm wondering if he's going to send me one here.
He needs to find. He needs to know where you are. That's what
Send your address.
No, he sent
Put your address in the in the comment.
For a girl who values privacy, I will say, I'm going to give a hint to everyone. I was watching the other day, Emily in Paris.
Oh, for Christ's sake!
Hold on, and I'm like, why does that street look so familiar? Wait, why does that shop look so familiar? And I'm like, oh shit, that's my place.
Your place now. What you're saying is you're an Emily in Paris now. So now what you need to do is get ready for the next time they film and stand on your deck, and maybe you'll even be in the show, Becc.
Well, apparently, so there's one part where she walks by my place, and I'm up and to the right, the terrace to the right, and apparently they shut the entire thing down for like 2 days for her to film.
Well, you can't shut you down. You live there.
I know, can't shut me down.
Well, now we're going to the first segment of this podcast, which is Email Teardown. This is the segment where Keenan and Becc tear down emails and messages that were sent over to them. Now on to the first email. This one says, Keenan, I've been in B2B sales since 1993, trained by a Fortune 500 company and IBM sales executives. I also co-founded one of the first SaaS/cloud companies in the world in the mid-90s. Since then, I have founded 2 companies in Israel, leading one of them to receive the Deloitte Fast 50 award. Over the last 4 years, I've helped over 30 companies accelerate and initiate their sales processes. If there's any interest, I'd be happy to connect and have a conversation. My name is Charlie Cohen. Additionally, I coach American football, which has similarities to sales. Feel free to visit my LinkedIn profile for more information. Would there be interest in speaking? Warm regards, Charlie. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this email?
I really think we got to start trying to figure out how to help people see what a good email looks like, because it just feels like I think everybody's walking. This is how we win. If you are paying attention to this show and you watch this show regularly, long time watcher, first time caller, right? And you should be seeing a theme right now. And you should be able to write emails that do not fall into any of these theme traps. But once again, why in the world is this man writing me? First thing, shows he has no idea who I am. Secondly, it shows he hasn't read Gap Selling, because he goes, I coach football, and he made no reference to the first story in the Gap Selling book about football. So that shows he has absolutely positively no idea who he's writing this to, which is a wasted email. You got to know who you're writing it to. Thirdly, his credibility thing is I've helped 30 people in 5 years or something like that. There is nothing impressive about that to me at all. That's 6 people a year. I'm not saying that he didn't help them a lot, but by no means is he getting credibility as somebody who's had massive impact throughout what he's done. So in this email, It screams I sent it to the wrong person. Basically, I'm his competitor. 2, it says he had no idea who I was. 3, he made references to things that interest me, was unable to personalize it because he didn't know who I was. And 4, he used things to gain credibility that were not credible. Like it's like, hey, to Becc, hey, I'm a marathon coach. I help people run marathons. I've run 4 marathons in the last few years in 4 hours. Beck's like, so I run faster than that. So
347, baby.
Hi, Becc. What are your thoughts on this message?
Well, I do think aesthetically it's not bad, meaning lots of numbers, lots of hyphens, lots of like it was readable, but that's unfortunate because of the text. Because the text is basically him trying to build credibility. I think it like orients around a belief that people have that to build credibility with someone, I should talk well about myself. And instead, to build credibility, you should teach someone something that they don't know, especially if it's about themselves, especially if it's a problem that could hurt them. And number 2, or help them solve something that they didn't know how to solve or couldn't solve before they met you. That's how you build credibility. So I think most of this email is just him giving me his like baseball card stats about things that he's done in his past. Which to Keenan's point, like I have no idea why he's sending it. That's it. Safe to.
okay, hold on, man. They're saying they can't hear you. So try again. Talk
They
now.
can't hear us, or they can't hear him.
They can't hear me?
Yeah.
Can you all hear me?
Now, Cronin? All right, we're trying. So keep going, and if not, I'm not sure what to do. They say they can't hear you.
Maybe you can come up with a better question.
Hey, well, here's the second email, which is very short. It says, "Hi, Becc." Oh, it's a message. "Hi, Becc. Hope you've been well since I last reached out. Did you end up claiming the R&D tax credit? If not, but you're still intrigued, let's schedule a no-pressure call to discuss streamlining the credit claim process while maximizing your return. Would be a good idea to connect now prior to our busiest season. Plus, our partnership with 500 Global secures you at a discounted rate. Interested? Thanks and speak soon." Becc, what are your thoughts on this message right here?
So the reason I put this email in here was it was the first question that I didn't think was bad in all the cold emails that I've looked at, because they said something about, did you claim the R&D tax credit? And my first thought was, what is the R&D tax credit?
What am I missing?
Yeah, totally. What am I missing? And it got me to think. So I was actually really proud of this email.
Keenan, any 5-second thoughts?
Yeah, but the rest was terrible. The person should have, to Beck's point, great intro. And what the person should have done there is highlighted why people miss it and what people who are eligible for have, and if Becc fits any of those, to call her.
Totally. I was like actually pretty proud. I was like, I don't know what that is. Good job.
It should have explained it. So,
well, hey, with that, we are going on to the second segment of this podcast, which is Sales Mythology. This is the segment where Becc and Keenan demystify common myths in the sales industry. So the first myth of today is outbound and inbound prospects are wildly different. The main objective in discovery for outbound leads is to uncover their business problems and see if you're a good fit. And the main objection in inbound is to quickly qualify and understand price range, competitive situation, solution requirements, decision-making processes, and decision makers. Becc, why don't you start us off on this one?
You look good today, Becc.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm scared that you said it in mythology. Keenan just not like it was 2 seconds ago. Your face was like grimacing.
Oh, the craziness of the question, but I'm going to let you run with it now.
So the reason I put this in here is this is verbatim a post that I saw out on LinkedIn, and it says that they're wildly different. Number one, and it says the objective in outbound is to find this is basically to see if you're a good fit. And the objective in inbound is to qualify, but more quickly. That's how they're wildly different. And I just couldn't help myself from putting this in here because it just rages me. It's like I can't unsee it. That this is a perfunctory understanding of discovery, in my opinion. Like it's starting to get on the right path of I know there's something you should be discovering in discovery, but the objective in discovery is to discover a diagnosis. It says that nowhere in this, and nowhere in there should you be like quote unquote qualifying being defined as I want to see if they have money and if they're the decision maker and if they have a quote unquote need. There is no bigger trigger word for me at this point than need. What the customer
amen.
Totally. It's just when I hear that I'm like, even if you say, okay, outbound, the objective is to find the business problem that they say that they have. All I'm thinking about is what if they're wrong? What if they're wrong that that's not the right problem to be solved? What if they're wrong that that's not the right root cause? What if they're wrong that that's not all of the impact or that impact's not going to happen to them at all? What are all the problems that they don't know about? That is the objective in discovery. I get a piece of that as validating the business problem that they have, but this shows me a little traction of, okay, we think that we should be discovering something. I think this is just a selfish plug that I know it's going to take hundreds of years, honestly, to get the sales community to the point where they're like, okay, my expertise is to diagnose and my expertise is to find out things about my buyer that they don't know. But I think I just, from a selfish perspective, want to speed it up. Because when I see posts like this, I see us like toying with the envelope and just the cusp of it. And I'm like, if you're in the influencer community, blah, 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 I just want to push you in and make you dive in more there of like the objective of discovery is to discover. That is what it's about. It's in the freaking name. So discover what is going on with them, some of which they knew about and were correct about, but usually in my experience, that is a small percentage of the pie of what I'm finding in discovery. You know, what are you thinking?
I don't think there's any difference. None whatsoever. A inbound or outbound. Now, the approach you take to do it could vary because an outbound, they don't even know who you are. So you've got to get them. Everything's about value. So from an outbound perspective, they have to see the value in talking to you for just 2 minutes. And all you're trying to do in an outbound call is get them to agree to a longer conversation later, which puts them in the same position as an inbound person who's already agreed to let you talk to them. Okay? So, or engage with them. So there is absolutely no difference. I want to be perfectly clear with every person listening here. And I've said this so many times, but like Becc, it's frustrating because the sales organization, the sales world just does not want to get it or can't get it through their head. Sales is psychology. It's that simple. And the psychology of sales is the concept that says, does a person or persons or an organization believe that where they are currently, what they're currently doing, what's going currently in their organization, whatever, is untenable. They can no longer continue to do it. And in order to change, they have to change a process, they have to change an approach, or they have to change a technology. I guess a process is an approach. So that's it. They have to change the process of technology. But why and what do they want that change to deliver on? That's all. That's it, everybody. That's it. So when we're selling, we should not be trying to manage the transaction. We should be trying to manage the change. It's about change management. You cannot manage change if you do not understand why they want to change. You cannot do it. So if you aren't taking the time, this fucking bullshit about do they have budget? And what was the other one, Becc?
Need, price, decision making. It was like basically the medical.
Basically banned. So let me help the whole world out. Because we are even further in our research survey right now. And Becc, when I give this to you, you're going to ask me to marry you because the data we're coming up with is just off the charts. But watch this, everybody. Listen closely, my young children. Have you ever purchased the wrong product or service because you did not properly understand the problem you were trying to solve?
100% yes.
No, I wish it
I
was.
have.
Okay. 52.3% of all buyers said they bought the wrong thing because they didn't understand the problem they were trying to solve, which speaks to the ass fucks who keeps selling to need. The customer says, I need this, I need that. You sell it to them, it's the wrong fucking thing. Okay? Now, just to push it a little further, have you ever purchased a product or service you didn't know you needed until after your interaction with the salesperson? So there you go,
Very,
right?
Very rarely. Very rarely.
61% said they've actually bought a product that they didn't know they need till after their interaction with the salesperson. So those two data points alone tell you that buyers are desperate to engage with people who understand what they're selling and understand the problems and issues that that buyer is dealing with and knows how to navigate that change process with the buyer. And here's the last statistic. Have you ever purchased the wrong product or service because the salesperson recommended a solution without properly understanding the problem that you're trying to solve? And the answer is yes, 50.6% of the time. So the salesperson has tremendous impact in making sure the buyer gets the right thing. And the data is showing that over 50% of the time, let me phrase it, buyers at least once, because I didn't ask frequency, unfortunately, but at least once have, so 50% of all buyers have said that they have bought the wrong thing because all parties involved didn't know what the fuck they were doing. I can close the show on that alone.
Let me ask you a question. So, in the context of inbound and outbound, if let's say a patient comes into you and you're a doctor, and they have self-diagnosed, patient 1 has self-diagnosed on a scale from 1 to 10 a 9, and patient 2 has self-diagnosed on a scale of 1 to 10 a 2.
Wait, on that scale is accuracy?
No. Just the amount that they have self-diagnosed. Patient 1 has self-diagnosed and thinks they know what's wrong with them.
The amount of research they've done and how much they understand of what they think they have.
Correct.
Yes.
Which patient would you rather work with?
The one who's only self-diagnosed to the point of 2.
Bingo. And that's why outbound, this person was representing inbound is advantageous because they're more buyer ready and they've done more research. And I'm like, yeah, bro, but they've self-diagnosed a whole bunch more, which means there's a higher alert, in my opinion, that they've self-diagnosed something incorrectly and they're married to a belief that's not likely to.
Yes.
You're at more point blank range to diagnose at that point if they come inbound because they have typically self-diagnosed way more than an outbound lead. So I'm like, I don't see that as necessarily advantageous. I'm like, yes, if you were to point, if your only goal is to sell, then I can see that as advantageous. But if you want to actually help your buyer, it's actually usually more to your disadvantage if they have self-diagnosed.
Yep. So I want to give you one more thing in my 25 seconds. You're going to love this, and I'm trying to find it exactly, but I'm pretty close because it's a big thing. 72% of people have said that they have bought something that they didn't budget for.
Yeah, of course.
72%. Will you pay more than your budget? I can live with that one. Will you pay more than you budget if the value return on investment is worth it? 70% said yes, right? Then have you ever purchased a product that you hadn't budgeted for? It was over the allocated budget. And 61% said yes, and this is the brilliant piece. Of that 61%, 33, 70, 82% paid up to 50% more than what they budgeted. Bant, go fuck yourself.
And
if you're still talking about Bant and you want, matter of fact, I need to put this challenge on LinkedIn. Anybody want to challenge me on Bant? Let's go right now. I will go toe to toe with any asshole that's still holding on to Bant and teaching it as a qualification process. And I would even argue that you don't even need to have it later in the thing to see what their budget is, because I got evidence right here that the value is there. It won't matter.
I think it's too low. 72 is too low. I have a hard time believing that no one has ever bought something. Anybody has bought something they didn't have pre-allocated budget for. And this is coming from a spreadsheet girl.
So listen, I appreciate that, but I can't believe you're taking that, because this is not a couple people. This is four figures of people we have done this. So that is statistically accurate across all levels.
Totally. I agree, but I think it's higher. They're just not thinking through. Like, is there anything that I've ever not budgeted for? And honestly, every single time that a salesperson finds something,
yeah,
I'm like so thankful for it. Happened with my TV the other day. They're like, where's your TV going to go in relationship to the cable and box?
Yeah.
They were asking me about an HDMI cable that needed to be an extender. And I was like, it's this long. They're like, oh, you need this one. And I was like, thank you so much, even though it's triple the price.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, hey, with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Take it or leave it.
A little bit.
Mine is.
Okay, this is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Keenan and Becc let us know whether they would take it or leave it. So on to the first one of today. The first take it or leave it of today is dedicated inbound SDRs. Keenan, why don't you start us off with this one?
Inbound, take it. Take it all day long. Inbound, take it, 100%. Yeah, take it. I think the ability to save, I hate to say this, but to be more cost effective in managing your organization and allowing a first level of people to properly qualify and weed out people who don't have a problem, aren't ready to buy, we're not a good fit, is hugely valuable. So yes, take it.
I am actually a leave it. And the reason is, for the most part, I don't think you need the volume that most people have, because I believe that you can ask the same questions that most people are asking just on the site, and it increases conversion dramatically. Having them at all, yes, I do believe that you should have some, and they should be allocated to Keenan's point, but I don't think the volume of I'm a team it.
Okay, the next one of today is having the buyer agree with you on what the problem is or what the root cause is during a discovery. Becc, take it or leave it.
Ooh, I'm going to make Keenan mad twice. I'm a leave it. I don't need for them to agree with me. Certainly within discovery, I am in full diagnosticville. And then the next call, I'm simply presenting what I think the diagnosis is and what I think the solution is to that. I never have them like, hey, do you verbally agree with me that you have this certain sickness, blah, blah, because of blah, blah. They're like, oh, like they couldn't even diagnose it. So how could they agree within the diagnosis is my opinion.
What about you, Keenan? Take it or leave it?
I think it's how it's being framed. So I'm taking it all day long as it was asked. So my job, and I believe the job as a salesperson in discovery, is to do the discovery to properly understand what's actually happening. Now, what I think is happening, now what they think is happening was actually happening, and asking the questions, particularly from a definition perspective, to get them to tell me what's going on. I have to, by the end of that discovery, get them to agree with what we uncovered. So it doesn't have to agree with me and what I'm recommending per se, but using it in the form I always go to therapy and talking with, I call this the marriage questions. If I'm a therapist and I'm trying to get you to find a problem in your marriage, I get you to say, yes, I sleep on the couch at least twice a month. And yes, we call each other names and we fight. And yes, we have long stints without intimacy. I have to get you to say, yes, that's accurate. I agree. That's happening. Because if I don't get you anchored in a factual understanding of your current state, everything falls apart, because when we get to the end, like, well, that's not really happening. Well, that's not what I meant. And so, no, I have to get agreement of your current state, bare minimum, before that discovery is over. So, yeah, no, 100% take it.
All right, the next take it or leave it for today is asking the buyer who else needs to be involved in this discussion, or who would feel left out at the end of the discovery. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Yeah, I'm take it. I don't necessarily like it, but I'm take it. Because look, there are other people involved. If you miss who's actually buying, if you miss who has the greatest level of influence, you could screw the whole thing up. So 100%, right? Would I like to think things would be more streamlined? Yes. But the bottom line, you got to be aware of who you're selling to. If you're selling to a startup with just a CRO and CEO and they're both on the call, it's a stupid fucking question. Okay. But if you're selling to an organization that's got, 100, 200, 500,000 salespeople or more, or whatever you're selling to, 5, 6, 10,000, even 500 people, you got to ask that question. You got to make sure, here's the bottom line. You got to understand their buying process. Who's involved in the buying process and what do they do? You have to ask it.
What about you, Becc? What do you think?
We are 3 for 3. I'm a leave it because it typically comes off as circumventing, like you're not good enough. Usually my buyer will offer up, or if I'm going to do that at all, I'm going to say typically this person and this person is involved. From what I noticed from your organization, that's this person and this person, correct? But I think it's too touchy. Maybe it's because I sell into sales leaders and I usually get to power by default anyway. It sounds like an arrogant stick. That sounds braggy. That gets the last word.
It's not braggy. I think where we differ is I don't agree that we get there anyways. I've seen more than I'd like of salespeople who didn't ask it or that wasn't offered, and then they're in the cold towards the end and they're scrambling.
I think it actually comes from you, Keenan. It's a self-diagnosis question. That's what bothers me, is what do they think the next person is going to be involved in according to their ability. And my view is usually if they've left someone out, it's because of a specific reason, and they're probably not going to tell you that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. That's the rarity to me. But anyways, all right. It's all right, Becc. We can disagree. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
And with that, we're on to my favorite segment.
I can't see questions, folks. For those of you who are asking questions, getting involved, I cannot. LinkedIn's messed up or something. It's not pulling up the live. So
plug my computer in. Keep going.
If you are
punishing
asking
us
questions, keep asking them, and I'm sure it'll come up here soon. And then ask some questions for this one. Yeah, sorry. Go, Min.
100%. Well, hey, we're on to my favorite segment of the podcast, which is
The inbox.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan answer questions from our audience. And to help with that, we have our trusty mailbox right here.
Mail time.
And so without further ado, let's get on to the first.
Yeah, Min, if you want to leave that mailbox with the creepy wedding background when you move out next week, I'm not going to be mad.
Oh, yeah, to all of our audience, I am officially moving. So this is the last podcast in this background.
Wait, so everybody's saying Min's audio is fixed. Please just say yes or no, because some say yes, some say no. I can't figure it out anymore.
That's very interesting. Usually if y'all can hear my voice perfectly fine, usually it should be happening with LinkedIn, but I also know that LinkedIn's been messing up with certain things with streaming recently. So
I'm shocked that no one's asked that question in the Q&A. What is that thing in your background?
Oh.
Yeah, but it's so obviously weird they don't want to ask.
Yeah, just don't ask. It's better if you don't ask any questions. But anyways, Parker Zhao from Austin, Texas asks, at my company, there are really only 2 career paths for a sales rep like me. Going towards the enterprise route, meaning staying in AE but moving up in terms of territories, or going the leadership route or the management route, which would mean becoming a sales manager and eventually moving up to executive management position if everything goes right. My question is twofold. One, is this a common occurrence within the industry of the 2 direct, distinct career paths? And 2, how would you decide which career path to take? Keenan, why don't you start us off with this one? What do you think?
I feel like it's a trick question. I feel like it's such an obvious answer. I'm like, what am I missing?
It feels like when you ask me questions.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. So, yeah, that's common. I mean, if you're an SDR BDR, you become a manager or leader in SDR BDRs, or you go into AE, and then from AE you go to enterprise AE, or you go into management. Like, unless I'm missing something, and Becc may share it. No, that's what it is. If you want something different, go into a different career. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but like that's all careers. You continue to get more responsibility as an individual contributor, or you go into management. That's just how it is. It's an HR. You can be an HR manager. You can do HR benefits one time, and you can go HR, fucking, I don't know, community building one time. You go, like, I don't know, or you either go up or you go across. That's it. So yes, that's what you got, dog. The second one, how do I decide? I'm going to be as blunt as possible. And by the way, really quick, I was voted the biggest shithead on the glacier this past week, right? It was a funny reward they gave me because I was just fucking with everybody all the time. But I went from happy camper the first year I went to they created a whole new award just for me called the biggest shithead on the glacier because I went skiing and did a mogul ski camp all week. And this is why I'm the biggest shit on the glacier. I just tell people how it is. So, dude, this is a piece of advice I want to give you and let sink in. The mere fact that you would ask two strangers where you provide no information on who you are, what's important to you, why you got in sales in the first place, how old you are, what your goals in life are, etc., what the fuck we think you should do, tells me you're not spending enough time internally to focus on yourself. Don't ask a stranger that question. Like you should have an idea. Who are you? What's important to you? Where do you think your best skill sets are? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? You ask those questions of yourself. I can't fucking tell you what to do. And the fact that you're asking me to is disconcerting to me. Come on, man. It's your life. Let's go.
Hi, Becc. What about you? What are your thoughts?
So I will say I'll tack one thing onto what Keenan said. Something that I didn't realize that's a huge part of leadership. Well, let me take a step back. A couple things people don't know about me is one, I have a temper.
I've never seen it. You pout, but I've never seen your temper.
I pout in an intelligent way.
Oh, you do everything in an intelligent way, Becc.
Right.
I bet you can go to the bathroom in an intelligent way.
And I have selfish streaks about me. So.
That is true. That is true.
And I didn't realize when I went into leadership how much it is focusing on other people all the time. So if you're not ready to focus on other people all the time, then leadership's not for you because it becomes about them. It should always be about them.
Oh my goodness, we do not have time for another question.
For me, it's no fun because I'm the fun part.
Because it's Becc.
I'm the
Becc,
fun
Becc,
part.
Becc.
I true story call Keenan every year and ask him what he got me for his birthday.
What a great way to end the segment.
I mean it. I mean it. It's not a joke.
That's why we love you, Becc. That's why we love you.
Oh, yes. Okay, and with that, we are going to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The challenge.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And the challenge for today is how to know or identify if you're problem-centric selling or not. Becc, why don't you start us off on this one? What are your thoughts?
I was thinking you're going to start with Keenan and he was just going to go, you're not.
Oh, by the way, if you didn't notice, I start the scenes now with me as the main one, so you can't predict who's going
No.
next.
It was making me raging.
But yes, what are your thoughts?
So, well, typically you're not. Typically you're not. A good way to identify if you're everything but problem. Pain, you're only going to talk about their pain. You're not going to be after root cause. You're not going to be after anything that they didn't know. You're not going to be after, impacts that they didn't know about. Benefit-centric is the one I see most people in. So if you're talking about save time, save money, more time, more money. I saw a very well-known person from a very well-known sales intelligence platform say that your product only helps people do one of a couple things: save time, save money, or more time or more money. And I about threw a rock at the TV. So point being, that's going to be indicative of benefit-centric. Product-centric, you'll know when you just talk about your product all day long. Your entire discovery is not asking questions for you to be able to diagnose is a great litmus test. What says you?
This is pretty nuanced. Because I'm looking at this through the eyes of Becc.
How would they know? Because I think a big problem for people is they don't know that they're not problem-centric selling. They don't know, it hasn't been identified for them because they don't have a coach that's observed it, is able to identify it.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do right now is look at this through the eyes of the rep who's trying to figure out, am I problem-centric? You said problem. How do I know if I'm problem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the first way you'll know if you're problem centric is if you're genuinely leveraging curiosity and confusion as your guide to the discovery. So you're like, God, I don't know. I don't understand how they do this. I don't understand what's going on. I understand the numbers. So if you're genuinely trying to like fill in the blanks, you're genuinely trying to assess what's going on so that you could come back and say, oh, I get it. I know what they're struggling with. If your head is there, that means you're problem-centric selling. If you are asking questions in a way that will allow you to say, oh, we solved that. If you're asking questions in a way that's, our product does this. In other words, if you're asking questions in a leading way or in a way to quote unquote get the sale, you're actually product-centric selling. So the best measure to know if your problem or product is what is your motivation? Is it to understand or is it to sell? And if it's to sell, you're in the wrong place. You've got to separate the desire to talk about the product and think about your product from a desire to understand completely neutrally as best as possible what is happening right now.
That's brilliant. The leading questions thing. Keenan, just when I think you're all beauty, no brains.
I know, I am pretty though. Aren't I pretty? I was looking at it the other day. I was like, man, I'm pretty.
You are pretty. So the leading questions bit. And it's like if you're busy thinking of your next question when they're answering.
Yes.
If you're trying to get them to admit something so that it stacks up, things that stacks up in the ta-da, you're not wrong.
That was good, Becc. Both of those were much more specific. That was excellent. You're brilliant. Not just another pretty face.
All brains, no beauty.
Oh no.
Well, now since we have a whole bunch of time, we're going to go into a second challenge topic. This one is how to develop the questions to ask in discovery to be able to diagnose in discovery or gap sell. We started with Becc. Let's go with Keenan now. What are your thoughts, Keenan?
So I think this is where the pick comes in. The problem identification chart. So if you have not read Gap Selling, I highly recommend it, obviously, but go look up the problem identification chart. What the problem identification chart does is it acts as a guide or a compass. Look at it as a diagnostic tool that allows you to truly understand where your buyers will be or could be around the problems, impacts, and root causes you solve. So if you can get really good and build a very clean pick and it outlines the 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 business problems you solve, the impacts that those business problems could have on an organization, and then the root causes of those business problems, then you can just build your questions around that. No, by the way, you only need 4 or 5 questions to get going, because once you get going, if you're listening very closely, you should very easily be able to ask a follow-on question. So why the pick is so valuable is if you really get good at it and somebody says, I'm going to do it back to the marriage thing, right? The problem, I'm going to say the business problem is they're close to getting divorced, okay? The root cause is the lack of intimacy and inability to communicate, and they fight a lot, making those 3 up. The impact is the impact is they're only 32. They've got 2 little kids. They're not going to be able to see them as often. They might not be able to afford the family together. There's your impacts, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm talking to them and they're telling me, hey, we're sleeping in separate bedrooms 25% of the time. We're barely intimate once a month. He calls me names when we argue. She storms off. We don't talk for days. Do you know how easy it is for me to be like, okay, so understanding this, I got to believe you guys are probably talking about divorce already. See what I did right there, everybody? I know 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah. And then I'm like, you have children, yes? And so if you get divorced, are you concerned about the amount of time you'll spend with the kids? You're so young, you're concerned about the financial impact. Look what I just did. I just have to understand. So the pick gives you that guide to get there 10,000 times faster. You don't really need questions, 1 or 2 to get going. We just need to know their world. So you build it for your company. You obviously can't use a marriage pick for your company, but that's what you do. What do you think, Becc?
Well, I think the reason reps typically struggle with this, and I hear this almost every training, they're like, well, what questions do I ask? I'm like, your mindset is still in the wrong place.
Yes.
To me, that you're like, what finite questions do I ask? Because in your head, it's to sell. So what I would defer people to, and I'll give an example, but find out, after you find your business problems, find out the root causes, the somewhat finite number of root causes of what can cause that business problem. And I do think that they're somewhat finite. The reason behind that is I recently, whenever I got to Paris, I suddenly had a bump on my finger.
It's called a knuckle, Becc. It's called the knuckle.
Brass knuckles, Becc. So I had like a bump, and then it turned into a bigger bump, and then another bump, and they were getting really itchy. And then I got another bump here, and then another bump here, and I'm like, my hands are on fire. Let's see if anyone in the chat can guess what they think it was. So I'm aggressively researching. It would turn into TMI, turn into blisters, and then they would pop. And it wasn't like a normal blister that pops and you have like normal skin underneath. It was like just raw flesh.
It's psoriasis.
So my hands were like overtaken to the point where like it was unbelievably painful. And these
it's psoriasis or eczema.
On my, so damn you, Keenan. I like, what do you do all day? I really want to know. So I don't understand. Like, how do you know the rest of Romeo and Juliet? I don't understand. I genuinely, like, you're in a fact melt. So point being, I'm studying this for weeks because I'm like, what?
You should have just called me.
And I zoomed it. No, because it was gross. I didn't want to tell anyone.
It's not that gross. The thing that pops out is clear, and then it dries up and you peel it off.
So I'm like, this is either eczema, to your point,
yep,
or it's scabies, which is scary.
Yeah.
Super scary.
Fair enough.
They look identical. But then I start peering through all the root causes. And one of the root causes of eczema is too much sweat. And I had been running, 20 miles a day since I was in Paris. And I've been keeping my sweatshirts over my hands. Men, please don't bing me. Please don't bing me for this.
Do it. She has to, and then she can finish the story. She has to.
It's all good. Nothing personal, Becc. I'm sorry.
First in Paris. Point being, I'm like, okay, there was only 5 root causes to eczema. And I was like, one of them is sweating. And by that, I correctly identified it, that I'm like, these are 2 completely different paths for these medically. Turned out being eczema. Point being, there's always going to be around 5, 7 max root causes for a problem. So when you're asking these questions, instead of saying, do you think that the root cause is that, or, that your problem is eczema and that the root cause is sweating?
That's self-diagnosing. That's all self-diagnosing. Yeah.
I would ask questions like, hey, do you run a lot? Do you wear, how cold is it out when you run? Oh, okay. Do you put sweatshirts over your hand? Does it cause more sweat?
Or better yet, have you been sweating more often?
Yes.
Start higher level and work your way down.
Any of those questions, and all of a sudden I understand that yes, I have been not only sweating more, but keeping the sweat on my hands, and I could have correctly identified a root cause that I didn't know whenever I had it. So I'm like, that's the expertise of a seller, is understanding all of that. So quit asking what's the question that can manipulate this person thinking that I need to buy eczema medication. Start asking the types of questions that helps you and them through the process of it understand what the root cause is and why it's causing that problem so that you can change it. I can't believe I got binged in Paris. I was perfect.
So is it gone? Is it gone?
Yes, but I have literal scars on my fingers. It was all up. It was spreading on my fingers. So now it's gone after about 7.
You know. Congratulations.
I'll send you a picture. It was not.
I can't wait to see right before dinner.
Whew. Well, hey, before we end this podcast, we have just one extra segment for you, which is...
Oh, listen, just one more thing.
This is the last segment of our podcast where Becc and Keenan share what's on their mind and give us their closing thoughts. So first, let's start with you, Keenan. What is your just one more thing?
I was hoping Becc would go. What is my one more thing? I'm gonna go away from sales. My just one more thing is happy Juneteenth. And did you know, for those of you who may find Juneteenth to be an annoying holiday, because I know there are people who do, I just want to give you food for thought. I was born in 1968. That makes me 55 years old. Ooh, taking years off. Makes me 55 years old. I am the first generation Black American born with all my rights. First one born with all my rights. So all of my friends, Gen Xers, there are no baby boomers who are Black who were born with all their rights. Only Gen Xers. Okay? And it's the early Gen Xers. So when we sit back and we think about, this country's getting too racial and too many people trying to divide, and why do we have a holiday like Juneteenth, etc.? We need to understand this country has gone a long way. There's been no better time to be a minority in this country. But by no means have we reached the promised land. It's only been 55 years. That's it. Those who were born with all their rights are only 55, 56, and 57. That's it. So I'll leave you with that.
Hi, Becc.
Man, I had a really good rant.
Go.
No, I'm not going to. Out of respect for what you just said, I'm not going to.
It's not disrespect if you switch the topic.
No, I'm not going to switch the topic, but I will tell you a small piece of what you kind of apropos to the topic. I was in Galveston like a week ago or something, and my nieces, nephews, and my family got stung by jellyfish in the water. I don't go in the water, but they got stung by jellyfish in the water. So I'm going to look for medical supplies for them.
Just pee on their leg, Becc. Just pee on their leg.
I did, but afterwards I went. There was 10 of them.
Well, so you pee a lot, so they brought the right person. Yes, you do.
I go to Walmart to go look for medical supplies for them. And I saw in the Band-Aid aisle, there was one brand that had different colors of Band-Aids. And it had never occurred to me that Band-Aids are made for white skin. And if I didn't have white skin, then that would make it stand out a whole lot. And I made a small remark, and someone next to me said, well, that's not that big of a deal. Someone I didn't know. And I'm like, that's not for you to say. It's not that big of a deal to you. You're not the one incurring it. And so I think it's just small moments like that help me realize that put everyone else aside, I have a long way to go. Because it had never even crossed my mind of Band-Aids are made for my skin. They're not made, they match the color of my skin. And that's, even though it's not for me to say how small or big that is. It's just for me to recognize and be okay, there's one more thing. Anyway, but I have a big rant for next week that you're gonna like.
Awesome. All right.
Well, that's our podcast.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Y'all have been watching Sales Top to Bottom. I'm your host, Keenan.
And I'm Becc. See you next week.